Understand that your feelings are your responsibility. Imagine this. You're walking down the street carrying a heavy bag, but this bag isn't just filled with physical objects. It's also filled with your emotions, your feelings, and everything that, consciously or unconsciously, you've allowed others to put inside it. As you walk, the weight of the bag grows. Expectations, frustrations, disappointments, and desires, especially the ones you have toward others, begin to pile up. What we often don't realize is that this weight continues to grow because we give others the power to control it. And here's where Stoicism teaches us something powerful. No one has the power to influence your feelings except you. When we place our happiness in the hands of others, we're opening ourselves up to the weight of their actions, the things they do or don't do. But what Stoicism shows us is simple yet profound. Your feelings are your responsibility. This means that no matter what's going on around you, whether it's a love relationship that's not working out, an unpredictable situation, or the loss of someone important, you have the power to decide how you'll react to it. Just take a moment to think about how freeing it would feel to realize that we don't have to depend on others' actions for our happiness, that our inner peace doesn't have to reflect what others do or don't do. Instead, peace comes from within us, based on our ability to choose how we interpret and react to the circumstances around us. This doesn't mean we should become emotionless robots or shut ourselves off from the world. Quite the opposite. The emotional detachment that Stoicism suggests helps us love and connect with others in a healthy way, without putting the burden on them to be responsible for our happiness. Every person who enters our life is important, no doubt about it, but they are never the source of our complete fulfillment. When we embrace this idea, we begin to emotionally strengthen because we understand that our reactions and feelings are within our control. Have you ever imagined that you have full control over your emotions? That you could face challenges with ease and live with more purpose? Stoicism is the key to mastering the mind and achieving a balanced life. Think about all those moments when you were disappointed in someone because they didn't act the way you expected. How many of those disappointments arose simply because you expected them to fill an emotional void that only you can fill? When we place our hopes and emotional expectations on others, we end up giving them control over our lives, even though they have no obligation to meet those expectations. And this is where the pain starts. When we realize the other person can't or doesn't want to meet those expectations, we suffer. That's why Stoicism calls us to shift our perspective and constantly remind ourselves, our feelings are our responsibility. If you love someone, it doesn't mean you lack or need that person to feel whole. These feelings are real. They should be recognized. But what you do with them, how you process them and let them affect you, that's completely within your control. The other person has no obligation to fulfill your expectations, and the sooner we accept this, the sooner we will free ourselves from the emotional chains that bind us. Practicing emotional detachment is, above all, a process of strengthening. When you realize that your happiness depends only on you, something incredible happens. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the protagonist of your own story. This doesn't mean you can't care for others or that you should shut yourself off from new relationships. Stoicism teaches us to love, but in a way that doesn't destroy our inner peace. When we understand that we have the power to choose how we react to our emotions, we gain something valuable: freedom, the freedom to live without being a slave to others' actions. One way to start putting this into practice is by learning to set boundaries. Instead of letting others dictate how you should feel, start setting clear boundaries in your relationships. This means knowing what's acceptable and what isn't, and, most importantly, communicating that clearly. If you notice someone constantly crossing your boundaries, causing you pain or discomfort, it's your responsibility to take action. It's not about trying to control their behavior, but about deciding how you allow their behavior to affect you. Ultimately, when we accept that we are the only ones responsible for our feelings, life becomes easier. We stop worrying about what others think or how they behave, and start focusing on what truly matters: our personal growth and our inner peace. If you're carrying a heavy bag full of expectations and frustrations right now, take a moment. Let it go. You don't need to carry that weight anymore. The responsibility is yours, and with that comes the opportunity to transform your life and your relationships into something healthier and more fulfilling. One of the fundamental principles of Stoicism is understanding that it's not the things themselves that hurt us, but the judgments we make about them. In other words, emotional attachment, at its core, isn't about the other person, it's about the meanings and expectations we project onto them. For instance, the person you're emotionally attached to might represent something you feel is missing in your life. Maybe it's love, security, validation, or a sense of importance. But what Stoicism teaches us is that these emotional needs can't be fulfilled from the outside in. They have to be nurtured from within. Let's dive deeper into this idea. Emotional attachment often has its roots in old memories, maybe even from childhood. These are past experiences, relationships, and beliefs that shape the way we emotionally connect with others in the present. For example, if at some point in your life you believed you were unworthy of love or that you had to work hard to be accepted, those beliefs can cloud your judgment and keep you attached to someone who isn't actually what you truly need. The fear of loneliness or even the thought of facing life without that person might keep you tied to that emotional rope, even when you know deep down it's pulling you down. This is the moment to explore the root of your attachment. To emotionally free yourself from someone, you must look within and examine what you've been telling yourself. Are you really attached to that person because they are essential to your life? Or is it more about inner insecurity, the belief that you're not capable of being happy on your own? This is where true self-awareness comes into play. When you honestly re-examine your emotions and beliefs, you start uncovering layers of fear and insecurity that are at the heart of your attachments. Emotional attachment is often a defense mechanism. We attach ourselves to others to avoid facing the things we fear, like emptiness or loneliness, or the pain of living life without that connection. But as Stoicism teaches us, attachment is an illusion. In reality, when we hold on to that emotional rope, we're preventing ourselves from swimming freely toward true happiness and inner peace. To free yourself, you need the courage to let go of that rope. Yes, letting go is an act of courage because it means facing the unknown. But it's in that unknown where your true freedom lies. Ask yourself, what are you really trying to hold on to? What do you feel is missing? When you start asking these questions, you'll often realize that the emptiness you're trying to fill has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with your relationship with yourself. Stoicism teaches that the first step toward emotional and inner freedom is self-awareness. Only when we deeply understand ourselves, our emotions, and our inner needs can we begin to break free from the chains of attachment. Now, letting go of emotional attachment doesn't mean letting go of people or emotionally isolating yourself. Stoicism doesn't promote indifference or cold detachment. Quite the opposite. It encourages us to have healthier, more balanced relationships. When you let go of the rope, you're not saying that the other person is unimportant. You're simply acknowledging that you don't need them to feel whole. You allow yourself to love and connect in a freer way without depending on them for your happiness. The process of letting go of attachment is a journey of healing and discovery. By releasing the need to control what we can't control, you make space for new experiences and forms of love. Stoicism reminds us that true strength comes from accepting what's beyond our control and focusing on what we can change, our own actions, thoughts, and emotions. When you finally decide to let go of that rope, you'll realize you don't need it to float. You are capable of swimming on your own, finding what truly matters in life, your growth, your inner peace, your emotional well-being. What Stoicism teaches us is simple but transformative. True emotional freedom isn't in holding the rope, but in letting go and trusting in our own ability to move forward. Understanding the root of your attachment frees you from the invisible chains that hold you and paves the way for a more fulfilling and authentic life. It's not an easy process, but it's necessary to find true peace and happiness. Now, emotional independence is not the same as indifference. The line between them can be thin, but understanding the difference is crucial for nurturing healthier, balanced relationships. In a world where many people believe that emotional self-sufficiency means cutting ties or distancing yourself from others, Stoicism offers a much deeper and more meaningful perspective. Contrary to what many people think, emotional independence is not about coldness or shutting down. It's about self-awareness and self-care, which allows you to maintain inner peace, no matter what's happening around you. Imagine yourself as the captain of a ship navigating through rough seas. The waves may be high, the wind may be strong, but you're firmly holding the wheel, staying on course. Stoicism teaches us that while we can't control others or the circumstances around us, we can control how we react to them. That's the core of emotional independence. Being the driver of your ship, no matter how strong the storms may be. It doesn't mean you ignore or deny your feelings. It means learning not to let them define you or determine your happiness. Indifference, on the other hand, is like raising the anchor and letting the ship drift aimlessly. We often confuse emotional detachment with independence, but in reality, we might just be building walls around ourselves to avoid facing our emotions. Indifference may seem like a quick fix to avoid pain, but it only disconnects us from our true selves and prevents growth. The key difference is that emotional independence is learning to manage your emotions, while indifference is about avoiding them. With independence, you still feel, you still care, you still love, but you do so in a way that doesn't let your emotions control your life. True emotional independence is like a garden within yourself. You can plant seeds of love, gentleness, and understanding, but you're the one who decides when to water them, when to prune them, and most importantly, how to protect your garden from external threats. No one except you has the power to destroy that garden, unless you allow it. Indifference, however, is like building walls to keep the world out. While it may feel like a form of protection, it actually isolates you from fully experiencing the richness of human emotions. It's a false protection that prevents growth, personal development, and ultimately distances you from your own humanity. Emotional independence doesn't mean closing yourself off. It means creating space for healthier relationships. When you're emotionally independent, you don't expect others to fill the emptiness inside you. Instead, you learn to fulfill yourself. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't form deep connections, but it means that each person you meet adds to your life, rather than being the source of your happiness. Imagine yourself as a strong tree. Your roots are deep in the soil, and your branches stretch toward the sky, bearing leaves and fruits. But the tree doesn't depend on any specific leaf or fruit to remain standing. It stays firm and steady, regardless of how many leaves fall or fruits are harvested. In the same way, you don't need anyone specific to recognize your worth. Your worth lies in your roots, in who you are at your core, not in the opinions or presence of others. How many times have you thought that you needed others' validation to feel whole? That without someone, you're like a tree without leaves, losing your shine and vitality. But here's the truth that Stoicism teaches us. Your worth is not dependent on what others think of you. Just like the tree continues to grow, no matter the seasons, you can continue to bloom regardless of who comes or goes in your life. Your worth is innate, indestructible, and not easily defined by external circumstances. Recognizing your worth is the first step toward breaking free from emotional dependence and beginning a more authentic life. When you don't have a clear perception of yourself, you surrender your power to others. You seek validation and love from people who often don't know how to care for themselves. You latch on to fleeting attention, not realizing that it's just an illusion that prevents you from seeing your true value. Stoicism teaches us to practice discernment, which is knowing who truly deserves your attention and affection. It's not about arrogance, it's about self-care and self-respect. Think for a moment. How many times have you given your heart to someone who didn't know how to take care of it? How many times have you allowed yourself to get caught up in relationships with people who didn't recognize your worth, only to feel drained and exhausted? When you don't recognize your own worth, you become vulnerable and end up accepting less than you deserve. But you deserve more. You deserve respect, love, and attention. That starts with recognizing your worth. When you realize this, you'll begin to build relationships based on what you truly deserve, not out of fear or emotional dependence. You don't have to give your heart to everyone who crosses your path. Not everyone deserves the privilege of staying in your life. This might sound harsh, but it's an act of self-care and self-respect. Your attention, affection, and energy are valuable resources that should not be wasted on people who don't appreciate them. Imagine that your heart is a necklace of diamonds. Would you give it to anyone who passes by? Of course not. You would protect it and offer it only to those who truly value it. Yet emotionally, we often allow the fear of loneliness to make us open the box and offer our hearts to anyone who shows up. But this cycle must break. Learning to discern who deserves your attention and affection isn't about closing yourself off from love. It's about being open to true love that starts within you. When you recognize your worth, you protect your heart and create space for genuine relationships to grow. The people who truly deserve your affection are those who contribute to your growth, those who challenge you to be better, who offer genuine support without expecting anything in return. Remember, your love is a gift, not an obligation. And when you learn to value yourself, you'll naturally attract those who value you too. Letting go of those who don't deserve your best doesn't mean closing yourself off to love. It means opening yourself up to true love. True love starts from within. Have you ever imagined having complete control over your emotions, facing challenges with ease, and living with greater purpose? Stoicism is the key to mastering your mind and achieving a balanced life. Thank you for watching.